I've been using the Fujifilm GFX50S II to shoot almost all of my photos for the past month and a half or so. I've shot personal work, commercial work, a couple of weddings, an engagement session, and more. And while a month and a half is still not long enough for me to have like a solid final opinion on a camera, I do feel like I've shot a wide enough variety of things during that time to have a good look at the files themselves and start to form some of those solid opinions. So in this video, I wanted to take a really close look at a variety of my recent photos with the Fujifilm GFX50S II, discuss what I like and don't like about the files from an image quality perspective, and then tell you why a GFX camera probably isn't for you. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll even tell you how to get one of my Lightroom presets entirely for free. What's up? My name is Walter. I'm a photographer and commercial filmmaker based in the southeastern United States, and on this channel I'm all about trying to put the fun back into professional photography. So if that's something that makes your brain do monkey noises, then subscribe for more crap from me. So here we are in Lightroom with 40 photos. I'm going to try to go through these as quick as I can so to not waste as much of your time, but I wanted to go over several different lighting scenarios, situations, types of photography, both personal and professional, to hopefully give you a good idea of the kind of image quality you can expect when you use the GFX50S II. I also need to make a quick disclaimer that I don't own any first-party lenses for the GFX50S II. I only use vintage lenses these days, mostly from Mamiya. I have one Voigtlander lens that I love to use, and then there are a couple of 35mm SLR lenses that I haven't used those in a little bit because I've been loving the Mamiya and the Voigtlander, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. So starting off here with kind of a boring photo. This is one of the first test photos I took when I first rented this camera before I actually technically owned it myself. This was back at the beginning of the summer. I'll take the edit off of this so you can see it by itself. But this is with the Voigtlander 40mm 1.2, which is an M mount lens. It is a 35mm sensor size lens, so it's made for full frame cameras, but it adapts, like a lot of M mount lenses, pretty well to the GFX. I wanted to point this one out because even though it is a boring photo, I want to point out the just very unique and cool bokeh that you get as a result of using this lens on such a large sensor. But then when you zoom in, even at, I believe this is either at 2.5 or maybe even f2, but even at that kind of more open aperture, the level of detail that you're capturing here when you zoom in to 100% is very crazy. And this isn't even on one of the 100 megapixel newer GFX cameras. This is on the 50S II, so it's only 51 megapixels. But again, the level of detail that you see here is just, it's very impressive. So definitely want to point that out. We also have just a very great, I think you can see it more in these leaves down here, a very smooth, very pleasing focus fall off as the shallow depth of field starts to take over in the back. So just overall really pleasing image. Love the characteristic of that, and that is again with my edit on there. So on to the next one. This is another boring test photo that I took. This, I believe, was taken with the Zeiss Pancolor 50mm 1.8, which is another 35mm film lens. You can see my metadata over here is incorrect because these lenses don't have electronic contacts to tell the camera what the lens actually is. So, and I didn't put it in myself for this one, so the focal length is wrong and the aperture is also incorrect, but the ISO and shutter speed are correct. I'll take my edit off of this so you can see this lens, while full of character, is not as sharp as the Voigtlander or some of the other lenses that we're going to look at later, but I do think this was a good photo to look at just the level of quality and detail that you're getting here. And when you zoom out, you can see some of those more film type characteristics, especially in kind of your out of focus areas. You can see some of those chromatic aberrations that I don't think are inherently a bad thing. I think actually they kind of lend that look. So that's with my edit on there. We'll go to the next one. This is still with the rented 50S II before I bought it myself, but at a wedding I shot back in May. This is up near Boston. Beautiful wedding, beautiful couple. This is not the couple. This is one of the grooms with his mom. But I wanted to point this one out for a couple of reasons. This is again with the Zeiss Pancolor 50mm 1.8. That is the lens I use pretty much all day on this camera when I shot this wedding. I wanted to point out the vignetting that you see up here in the corners. Take my edit off. You can see a little bit more kind of these other corners. But I also want to point out that when you zoom in, you see that I actually missed focus. I actually ended up getting focus kind of more on like the back of his hair right here. You kind of see it on his shoulders as well. So yeah, I missed focus. I messed this photo up just a little bit, but I wanted to point this out because when you zoom out and you look at the photo as a whole in the moment captured and everything else that's going on, you can't really tell that it's out of focus, or if you can, it's still a sweet moment. And so even though, yeah, I messed this one up, I think it's okay. And there's my lovely black and white edit using the Acros profile that you can see here. On to the next one, taking my edit off of this one real quick. This is at that same wedding with that same Zeiss 50mm lens. So indoors, you can see a little bit more of that vignetting on the corners. I don't think it is bad enough to not use this lens at all on this camera. I think it's still a very pleasing look. But then you put my edit on there and you can see I actually did a little bit of vignetting correction. You zoom in on here and you can see the great detail that you are getting while still retaining that film look that we all know and love, especially with this older Zeiss lens on it. Some of those chromatic aberrations, a little bit of halation, stuff like that when you get around to the edges here. I think it's a really pleasing look. Of course, it's not going to be sharp from corner to corner, but that is not what you're asking for when you're using a lens like this. So as long as my subject is in focus and the whole image entirely is pleasing with great colors and good lighting, I'm happy with it. So I really like that image as well. On to the next one. This is now since I bought the camera. So this is one of the kind of the first weekends I had the camera a couple months ago. And I took it to a birthday party that my daughter was invited to. This is my daughter right here. And I threw on the Voigtlander 40mm 1.2, which paired with the GFX is actually a very low profile setup. The adapter for M-mount lenses to the GFX camera is very thin. And so with the lens that already itself is very small, it makes for a pretty portable setup. So it was a great option for a birthday party like this. So I'm not trying to bring like giant lenses and intimidate all these poor kids who are there. So throwing the Voigtlander on there was just a good choice for me. I wanted to point this one out because I'll take my edit off. You can see the really great colors that we know and love. It did render a little bit cool. I just use auto white balance whenever I'm shooting. And so this is a little cooler than I normally would have it, and I could edit it for color if I wanted to, but I really like the black and white moment on this one, so I like that. But I wanted to point this out here with this particular lens. I believe I shot pretty much everything this day at f2. Again, you're not going to get the correct metadata because this lens does not communicate with the camera. So it says f1, but I shot it at f2. We zoom in here, we can see just how sharp and detailed her hair is, even though her face is obscured by the big balloon here. You can see how sharp her whole face would be if it was in the shot. But I love this moment. I love this photo. It feels very fun and whimsical to me, and the black and white I felt like added to it. So really, gosh, the sharpness and detail that you get with this lens on this camera is pretty impressive. Again, we're seeing more of that vignetting that you do see more of in a scene like this when you have a lot more white or anything like that around the corners. You're definitely going to see more of that vignetting, especially as you start to stop down. At 1.2, you probably wouldn't see it as much, but at f2, it starts to get a little more noticeable. But again, I don't care. I think it adds to the look. You might not agree. That's totally fine. I don't care. On to the next one. Now we're getting into some of the good stuff. This is one of the first photos I took with the Mamiya 80mm 2.8 lens adapted onto the GFX. You can see here that I forgot to update the metadata inside the camera, so it says it's still the 40mm. It's not. It is the Mamiya 80mm 2.8. I shoot this lens pretty much all the time wide open at 2.8 because I think it just has a really cool look. It actually is a lot easier to get focused than you think it would be. But I wanted to point this photo out because the subject separation of my daughter here compared to the environment that she's in, which is just in our neighborhood, is very, very cool because you can see here your background is not blown out, okay? Like you can still see that this is a house behind her. You can see a little bit of a car, the trees, the curb and all of that. You can see all of that. You can see that it's that, but it's just that medium format look with a real medium format lens that gives it that very unique and strong subject separation without just resorting to just crazy bokeh. But then you zoom in here and take my edit off so you can see just how sharp this lens is on the GFX. This is, Mamiya lenses were made for the Mamiya 645, okay? It is a real medium format camera, and the sensor inside the Mamiya 645 is even still bigger than the sensor inside of the GFX. And so you'll get no vignetting. It will cover the entire sensor of the GFX every time. And these lenses, because they're made for the bigger sensor, they're just sharper, they're more detailed while still keeping, a really great subject separation. So I love using these lenses on this camera because I really get that that perfect balance that I've been looking for between like good sharpness and clarity and detail, as well as kind of that film characteristic that I really love. So putting my black and white edit back on this, I think it just really completes that look. I absolutely love it. Same moment here. I pulled it up because, you know, this is the same day. But again, using the same Mamiya lens on the GFX just gives me a look I just love so much. Again, you can see, take my edit off, just how sharp and detailed that is, especially for an old lens. But then, you know, we're not completely blowing out the background. The background's very clearly out of focus, and it's drawing attention to our subject, but it is still, like, you can still tell what it is in the environment that she's in. And then it's just a look that I have not been able to really get on any other sensor size from other cameras. So absolutely love it. On to some commercial work here. This is at a retirement home. We were getting some footage of the kitchen staff, especially the head chef here, making some really nice looking food. So I'll take my edit off so you can see here. This is with no edits. Zooming in, you can see the detail. This is, again, with that Mamiya 80mm 2.8. I actually misfocused a little bit, as you can tell from the eyes. I ended up being a little further behind here, maybe on his beard, right in front of his ears. But again, it's one of those things where you zoom out and you really can't even tell because the moment was captured well. I think I might have, let's get him back in the middle there. Put my edit back on. It's a very simple edit. I use the classic Chrome picture profile to give kind of that very neutral type of look while still keeping a little bit of film characteristic. I also don't mind that we have a kind of a hot spot here on the side of his head, but I do want to show you that you can take that out entirely if you want to. We can look at how much detail is captured with that big set. I mean, you can almost take this all the way out if you want to. And again, showing you what it looks like before. I feel like on pretty much any other full frame camera, especially like a crop sensor camera, you can recover some of this, but not all of it. But on the GFX, it's absolutely no problem. So if I wanted to, I could have, you know, masked that part out and like done all of that. But at that point, in my opinion, for how I like to shoot, what my style is, that would start to look a little unnatural. But I wanted to point this out because I think this is a good photo, but also this kind of hot spot of light here, you can take out if you want to, either with like your highlight slider, your exposure slider, whatever. You could have masked that out if you wanted to, but I like kind of the more natural look that we have there. So on to the next one. This is definitely one I wanted to point out. This is the same kitchen, the same shoot. This is the before, so this is an unedited, same Mamiya 80mm 2.8 on this camera. But I wanted to point out that even though this is at ISO 3200, it is still a very clean image, you know, all the way down, zoomed in at 100%. Of course, when you get in the middle here, you see those flames. And then put the edit on. You can see here I pulled my highlights down a good bit so I can see the detail of those flames. And I can use it with exposure. I mean, look at how much detail is captured here. Even when you look at this, you're like, okay, that's completely white. That's burnt completely. You're never getting that back. Nope, not true. Not so on the GFX. You are able to get that all the way back. So very cool. Love that. On to the next. Very simple plating session at the same shoot, same lens, same camera. Just want to point this one out. We zoom in. We can see all the detail that is captured here. Take my edit off so you can see. We still have a little bit of those film characteristics, you know, with like very slight chromatic aberration and slightly bloomed highlights. But man, the detail and the sharpness and clarity that you get from this lens on this camera is just incredible. So that's unedited, and that's with my, you know, very slight edit on it. One more, same shoot here, same moment. Really nothing else to say that I haven't said already. You know, the detail is just incredible here. So very cool. Love that. One more from this shoot. This is more of a lifestyle shot that I wanted to show you. Take my edit off here. Same thing, zoom in, you get all the detail you want. This was shot at 1/125th of a second. The GFX50S II does have IBIS, but because I didn't input the correct focal length here, the IBIS probably wasn't working as well as it could have. We have just a very, very little bit of camera shake, I think, in this image. If there is, it's not a lot. And then again, when you put the edit on, you zoom it back out, it really, if you lean into that film look like I do, this really sells it for me. I mean, this is just, gosh, I just think about how much fun this was to shoot on this set, because this is a video shoot that I was also doing photos on, and it was just, so we were able to control all of our lighting and everything, and that's where the GFX can really shine. Okay, on to the next one, just some family documentary stuff. This is my daughter again. This is still with the 80mm 2.8 Mamiya. You can see here that I finally put the metadata incorrect. Oh my gosh, I put I put in the metadata correctly. There we go. And so the camera knows I'm shooting with an 80 millimeter lens. It's using that IBIS to its full ability. We zoom in here. I mean, just, gosh, I don't know how many more times I can say it, but the detail and sharpness here is great. But then if you come out to like, you can see where the focus starts to fall off. It just looks so good. So sharp right here. But then you can see this very natural, smooth roll off. And then you get this really cool looking bokeh behind her. The subject separation is just crazy. We also do have this little bit of a hot spot right here, but we can, so this is the original. Just felt like a good black and white, and so that's why I did it that way. But this hot spot on the side of her face, I'll show you. You can just bring that pretty much all the way back if you want to. I mean, all that detail is still there, and that is just so crazy to me. Again, I don't edit like that. I'm okay with some technically overexposed parts of my image because I just really love the way that looks. So it looks more natural to me. That's usually how film, depending on how it's developed and scanned, I know, but that's usually how film kind of looks. Film is not afraid to technically blow out some highlights and stuff like that. So I like that more natural look. That's just me. Same thing, more family documentary. You take the edit off so you can see, zooming in here, great sharpness, great detail, and then you put on a cool black and white edit on that, and it's just gosh, the subject separation is just crazy. So much fun to shoot with. On to the next. We'll take our edit off. Really fun, cute little moment with my daughter. She loves school buses, especially yellow school buses. She's obsessed with them. She always starts yelling about it when she sees them. And so we went on a long walk this day and just went to go find some buses around the area. And so this is actually with a lens. This is my first day shooting with this particular lens, which was the Mamiya 55mm 2.8. Ooh, getting fancy with it. I wanted something wider, but I wanted another Mamiya lens so bad because I love that 80 so much. But I wanted basically the 80 wider, more versatile, and that's exactly what I get with the 55. So great walk around lens, very versatile. Still just as detailed and has all the same great character that I love from the 80mm. Not as much subject separation just because it is wider than 80, but again, still some character that I really love and love the colors from it as well. This is edited on the classic chrome simulation, and then I kind of edited it from there. All right, moving on to some wedding photography. I shot a very good portion of this wedding with the GFX50S II with the 80mm, 55mm lenses from Mamiya, and then in just a minute we're going to see some photos that I took with the Voigtlander 40mm 1.2 on the camera as well from this same wedding. But starting off with an image from the 55mm. This is such a cool moment where the groom is standing here waiting for the ceremony to start. He has not seen his bride this day yet, and as we were just hanging out waiting for the processional to begin, I see this butterfly land on the sign behind him, and just a cool, fun moment that was. The only thing I would change is I probably would have stopped down my aperture a good bit. The moment happened really quickly, so I didn't want to take the time to change all of that. I would prefer to shoot this at f5.6, f8 to get more of him in focus. But still, we know who this is, especially whoever was at the wedding knows that this is the groom. And again, this great moment with the butterfly behind him. This is without the edit on here. You can see, that great detail captured. I might have misfocused very, 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 very slightly because it's just not as much detail as I usually get when I nail focus, but I still think it's perfectly serviceable. We do have, because of this bright white in with direct sunlight, you can see a little bit more of that highlight bloom and chromatic aberration. It's very, very slight with this lens on this camera, but it is there. I won't deny it. So anyway, that's with my edit on there. I love the classic neg film simulation lately, so you'll see a lot of photos edited with the classic neg profile. On to the next one. The same wedding, the same ceremony. This is actually, this is the Mamiya 80mm 2.8 back on here again, and you'll notice a trend here where I forget to change that in camera so that my metadata is correct. So it's not the 55, this is with the 80. You zoom in here. This was when the officiant told the couple to look out at some people who were there to see them get married. So I love this moment captured here. You can see how sharp and detailed it is, even when you zoom all the way in. And this is also kind of a hard situation to shoot in. It's very direct sunlight, kind of mid-afternoon. And so, but I think the GFX covered it very well, and I let it look a little harsh because that's what it was. Again, with classic neg profile, I think that looks great. On to the next one. Same ceremony. We'll take my edit off here so you can see this. Very natural looking grass. It rendered these greens very well, especially when you get into the kind of out of focus area here in the grass. You see kind of that some more of that aberration, the fringing, the highlight bloom. I think it looks so good. The dynamic range is crazy too. If I really wanted to, you know, I could do really HDR and pull, let's just do a normal color. I can pull more of that out, and I can really balance out the shadows and the highlights. I don't want to though, because I wanted to edit this in black and white, and I obviously shot this to see the shadow in it from the sun hitting the cross and then on the grass while the ceremony is happening behind them. So great moment. I love that. Love the way the GFX rendered it onto the next one. This is right after the ceremony as we were waiting for everybody to get gathered around for some group photos. I just love the moment here with, still have the 80 millimeter on. Again, not the 55, sorry. But you zoom in here, you can see this really cool out of focus area. But then you see, boom, flowers in focus, great colors, especially with classic neg, which I really love. This is without the edit. I think the edit just really helps it pop with more of that kind of vintage film look. We do have some hot spot here with, you know, the sun coming in. Can't help that. That's just where I was standing and where she was standing for this very quick moment. I still think this is a great image that gets, that's like a different way to get some detail shots as opposed to just throwing stuff on the ground and doing flat lays. So love that. Great portrait here of our beautiful bride Sierra. They were such a sweet couple. I loved working with them so much. I'll take my edit off so you can see, but this is with the 80 millimeter 2.8. Again, haven't changed the metadata. Deal with it. Zoom in here, you can see, oh my gosh, just the detail and how sharp and clear these images are with the Mamiya lenses on the GFX. I mean, it's really hard to get better than this without taking away some of that character as well. So again, when I say I found the perfect balance of like sharpness and character, man, this is it. This is with my edit on, classic neg, with some adjustments made to white balance to kind of give it that more film look. So love the colors, love this portrait here. Man, again, I can't get over the details when you zoom in on this. Next up, we have, which is a pretty tough situation to shoot in with the same couple here. As you can tell, it is pretty heavily backlit. We are a little bit more in the shadows, but I love this moment. I love the colors behind them. This is their venue behind them, so I wanted to get that in there. And it was one of those where I'm shooting and I'm like, I will deal with the edit later, even though the lighting is not super ideal. And I got to kind of lean into that more contrasty look where I'm okay with the subjects being a little bit darker because I think the image is strong enough to make the subjects still stand out, even though they are not quote unquote perfectly lit against their background. So I went for more of that moody edit here. Again, zooming in, you can just see the detail that you get here. When you get further away with these Mamiya lenses, though, when you get further away from your subjects, you do see more of that character over sharpness, which I like. Not everybody might like that. That's okay. But again, because our subject's a little bit farther away, we're zooming in further. And so we get some more of that highlight bloom here, especially you can see like on his glasses and some of that chromatic aberration as well. But I don't care because I think it looks really good and has kind of become part of the film look that I've been going for a lot with what I like to shoot. So I love that. This would also work well with a black and white edit. That's actually might be one of the edits that I sent to them was in black and white, but I think either way, this one looks really good. This is at the reception, obviously after cake cutting. At this point, I put on, I forgot to change the metadata again, but from this point onward in the evening, I had the Voigtlander 40mm 1.2 on the GFX. And so just to get a little bit wider, because that's how I usually like to shoot receptions, especially when I'm using direct flash like this. This was shot with the Godox IT30 Pro, which I made a whole video about last week. Shout out again to Godox for sending me out that flash. Really great flash for documentary wedding photographers like myself. I popped it just right on top of the GFX and shot like that. Love the images I got from it. You can see that actually misfocused a little bit, I guess. Probably would have preferred to get focused closer to the front of the slice of cake here instead of on the back. I don't think it matters though because this image is still captured very well, and it gets some of the cake down here in focus too. So this is a great moment, I think. Just a little bit of detailed storytelling. So yeah, love the Voigtlander on this camera. So good. I picked this one on purpose because this was a really good example of a couple of things. One, what this camera can do in very low light conditions, and then the colors that you're able to mess around with. Okay, so I'm going to show you the unedited here. This is just straight out of camera, no film simulation or anything. This is that, if you're looking at here on the side, ISO 10,000, and then we zoom in, And yeah, you've got a little bit of noise, but not much. I mean, this is not much at all. We hit focus kind of about right here, and maybe we'll reset it so I can pull some exposure so you can see. When you pull exposure down to expose for your highlights instead of the whole image or the shadows like I did, man, look at this. Such a clean readout at ISO 10,000. That's crazy. We'll hit undo a couple times and get my edit back. Let the grain settle in. I leaned into the film look where maybe in camera you underexposed this, and then in development they had to push it while they were developing. So doing that, usually when I've seen that in the film that I've shot where I very clearly underexposed it accidentally, when they push that, it tends to, depending on the film stock you're shooting, tends to push your shadows very green. And so I'll show you in my HSL tab here. Sorry, not HSL. My color grading. You can see where I pulled my shadows towards the green. And I'll show you what that looks like without it. If you press a little eyeball here. So that's without, that's with. I feel like that added to the film look. I also brought up my midpoint here a little bit on the tone curve to help give it kind of like, I think that helps the oranges really come out, which is a look that I really love. Pulled my shadows down a little bit, that kind of stuff. You'll see here in my basics tab, I didn't really mess with a whole lot at all. Most of the work I do here to get to that quote unquote film look is done in the color grading and the tone curve. So anyway, love that image. What this photo makes me feel, I feel like it feels cozy to me. It feels like I'm relaxed at a wedding reception. On to the next one. I like this one a lot because it's a similar vibe to the previous one. Very low light. I'm leaning into more of that film look, and I'm letting the image make me feel something instead of trying to capture like something perfect. This is actually shot through the window of the venue. This building over here is where the bride and her girls got ready. I'll take off the edit so you can see. Again, with a Voigtlander 40mm 1.2, you zoom in even through the window, very far away. It's obviously not as detailed as it would be if I wasn't shooting through the window and I was closer, but I still think it looks really good. And again, I'm not trying to get perfection here. You can even see the reflection from the DJ's lights here in the window. But with my edit on here, I tried to make it feel like it was more of that film look, more of a vintage vibe. I might have overdone it on the grain. Who gives a rat's ass? Not me, dude. So love that one. On to the next. I picked this one because for the same reasons. Now we're to ISO 12,800. This is still with a Voigtlander 41.2. I'm actually wide open at f1.2. I remembered I opened it up because it was very dark out here. The only light we had was coming from the doors from the inside of the venue here. And so I kind of just make do with what I had. I could have used a flash. I didn't want to. I wanted to go for the very natural look here. So slowed my shutter down a little bit to 1/80th of a second. And that IBIS would have helped out even more if my metadata was correct with the right focal length. But even still, I'll take my edit off. I was still able to get focus, and at 12,800 ISO, yeah, there's grain, there's noise, but it's very pleasing to look at, and it's not a whole lot. So I love this image just a whole lot. I really love it, and it just screams black and white. So of course I had to do a black and white edit. Same moment here. This was right after that previous moment. They are walking to their car they're going to drive away, and take the edit off so you can see. With my slower shutter speed at 1/80th of a second, we do have some motion blur. And I missed focus just a little bit. I was trying to nail it on her eyes. I miss it. That's okay. It doesn't matter because the moment is good and this image makes me feel something. So a perfectly imperfect image that I love, and I owe a lot to the GFX and the Voigtlander lens for getting me there. One more image from this wedding, that same sequence of events. Now she's in the getaway car. You can't see him, but the groom is, well, now you can see him a little bit without the edit. He's right here on the side. He just helped her get in the car. Now he's getting in. This is just another classic looking photo that screamed black and white. You zoom in here, you can see she's smiling. She's so happy after such a great day. Take the edit off so you can see again. A lot of grain on there. I put that grain on there because I like the way it looks. You can see here how much grain I put on. I don't care, dude. That's my style. That's what I like. And we're done with that wedding. Let's look at a few more. This is when I took the GFX50S II into a football game, not as a professional photographer there, but just for fun. We were just there with my wife and some of our friends, and I put on the 40mm 1.2 from Voigtlander once again because it's a very small lens, and I was able to carry it around all day without feeling that weight of like one of the bigger Mamiya lenses. So just shot a few around the stadium from my own seat. I didn't move around to get these images, but again, just want to point out how clean and clear this image is. I mean, I feel like if I had like the 100S or 100S2 GFX, I could zoom in even more and you could see like individual people's faces and like conversations people are having. That's how much detail you get. Even still with the 50, you still get a lot of detail. I wanted to point out, take the edit off real quick so you can see, I overexposed this image, and on other weaker cameras, this right here might have been mostly unrecoverable. Not with the GFX, buddy. You know, black and white edit, you can see I'm pulling my exposure down by a couple of stops. I can go down even more. I mean, I can really just take this far. But I like the slightly overexposed look here. I feel like that kind of adds to the film vibe. Love that. On to the next one. Similar moment here. Edited with color with the classic neg film profile from my seat. I like that it's a little overexposed here because, again, film would tend to look like that. I'm not shooting film, but I'm pretending like I am. So you zoom in here. All the detail you get here is crazy. I don't even remember what aperture I shot this at. Probably f2, honestly. I also have it in broad daylight. You want to shoot it like, you know, f6 or f5.6 to f8. I'm having fun shooting at f2 because it's kind of a fun challenge. You get off to the edges here, you can see some of the smearing. It is not sharp corner to corner. I don't care. I don't want it to be sharp corner to corner because in the middle here, it's good. So let's zoom in. You know what? I can show you what it looks like. You bring that exposure down. You could just get so much detail back. Totally depends on your shooting and editing style, how you would edit this yourself. Do you want to bring that sky all the way back? You can. Do you want to edit like me and kind of have it slightly overexposed so you can get the fields properly exposed and the people in the foreground are in shadow? Do whatever you want, man. It doesn't matter. Looks great. You do whatever you want with the files from the 50S II. Same moment here just now at night. This was a 6 p.m. kickoff, so it was really cool to be able to shoot some moments during this game as it was daylight and then into nighttime. I wanted to point out some of the highlight bloom you get with the 1.2 aperture on the Voigtlander 40mm. Really cool look. I love it so much, especially if you look at the light up here, you get some ghosting and some flaring. That is technically an imperfection, but I love it. I think it looks awesome. Again, some detail. There's a little bit of smearing. We're shooting at at 1/60th of a second, ISO 4000. So it's a little bit darker, but nothing that the GFX can't handle. I could have frozen this action more if I, sped up my shutter speed. I like shooting at f1/60th because I get kind of the motion blur on purpose from the shaker here. I think that looks great. Just a few more here. Same game, same moment. My friend Walker here. I slightly missed focus. I don't care. Great moment captured. We're all just having fun at this game, and he happened to look right over at me as I was trying to get a photo of him and his wife there. Love it. Love it so much. And man, let's take the edit off of this one so you can see. One, our screen's completely gone, but we can bring it back if you want to. I'll show you that in a second. You got some flames here, some pyrotechnics. And then you got, of course, cheerleaders and all things going on down there. The SEC football games have gotten crazy. I haven't been to one in a long time, but they've really pulled out all the stops with all the entertainment they do. So here's our black and white edit. I'll show you how you can bring back the pyrotechnics and the screen. The screen here, nothing's going on, but you can see it. And then our flames down here. You know what? I cooked the flames. This is the first time. This is the first time that I've got some unrecoverable highlights. But I'm okay with it. You can tell that it's fire. And if I had exposed more for that, probably could have gotten it, but who cares, dude? That's the first time. That's the first time I've seen it that it's gotten me. Okay, GFX, I see your limits. You can't do magic. That's all right. As we're leaving the game, just love this moment. Feels so much quieter than everything that was going on in like these previous ones. We're from the outside looking in now. The game is over. People are leaving. You can see people leaving here. But also wanted to point out some of that highlight bloom or halation, whatever you want to call it, with your highlights here. Oh my gosh, it's so good to look at. I love it. It feels like I'm shooting like Ilford 3200 or something, which is one of my favorite black and white film stocks. So amazing. A few more here, we're almost done. Baptism at my church, I shoot those when they happen, and they start this new tradition where they write on the walls here, write their signature here to leave their mark. But I want to point this out because this is another really high ISO situation. My shutter speed's at 1/100th of a second, so relatively slow for shooting any kind of moving action. My ISO is at ISO 10,000, and this is with the Mamiya 55mm 2.8. So if I had been using my Voigtlander, I could have opened up to 1.2, brought my ISO down and my shutter speed up, but I wanted to use the Mamiya. Who cares? So ISO 10,000, without the edit here, you can see we're still getting a lot of detail, a lot of clarity, and it's a great moment captured. Same thing on the next one. ISO is down, actually up. No, it's down 6,400. Shutter speed's a little bit faster because it's baptism to bring up out of the water. I don't want to freeze that motion entirely. I like a little bit of motion blur in that to show the action. So that's all my settings were at where they were at, but I know I shot these all at 2.8. Zoom in here again. Oh my gosh, what have I done? What button did I press? Oh, I messed up. Okay, here we go. So anyway, great moment captured, great detail. This is without the edit. Oh, hold on. This is without the edit. I do simple classic chrome edits on stuff like this. I don't want to do anything too crazy with colors and stuff. So anyway, does it very well. I want to point this one out because this is another one at ISO 12,800, 1/60th of a second, aperture of 2.8, without the edit. I still underexposed this because I actually don't even know if my GFX was letting me go above 12,800 at all. So I maxed out ISO knowing that because I'm shooting in RAW, I can pull that up. And so the screen black and white edit, I love that. Yeah, there is a good deal of noise and grain here when you zoom in, but still so much detail and clarity. You get some, I don't know if this is ghosting or what you'd call this on the edges, and I could fight that with gradient filters or anything like that. It just looks so good to me then though. Love the black and white. Love the detail on this. This was a guy who's about to get baptized, waiting for his turn. And so I just felt like a good moment for a detail shot. Now, quick engagement session I did last week. Shot some photos at this restaurant where they had one of their first dates. And so I shot from across the bar. This is with the Mamiya 80mm 2.8, wide open at 2.8, ISO 10,000, shutter speed 1/60th. We got other people who are not at all involved in this photo on the edges here, framing our subjects, the couple right in the middle. Of course, I'm a little bit further away, so it's not as detailed as it would be if I was closer, but we still got plenty of detail, great moment captured, nice moody lighting, love that. And then here's a better exposed one, same lens, 80mm 2.8, 1/200th of a second, ISO 1600, so a lot lower than we have been. The detail, I focused on her eye right here. The detail is just nuts. It's so crazy. And of course, with a little bit of fall off once you get up to him, I'm okay with that in this photo because I wanted her to be the focus. If I wanted to get both of them, would have closed it down to f5.6, f8, which I did do on some other photos at this spot right here. And then another moment here on a bridge overlooking the water. Just great. Same amazing detail. I love it. The sun was setting right as we got up here, so perfect timing for that sunset golden hour look. This is without my edit. Just so good, man. So good. I tend to lean a little more green in my white balance. Tend to lean more green instead of magenta, so that's why you see that. If that's not your style, that's fine, man. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. Great moment for me, though. Love it. And then the very last one, we're finally at the end here. Same shoot. I'll show you without my edit. But just that same great light coming in. We got some flaring here that I think looks really nice that I got from the Mamiya lens. This is an unplanned moment. I don't know if I said something a little out of pocket or maybe our guy did here, but regardless, got laughs. People are having a good time. This just felt like there's no other way to do this but a good black and white edit. Cranking the grain on it a little bit too is going to really help give it that film vibe. You zoom in here and you can see the detail. I'll show you without my edit. Of course, it is washed out a little bit because of the sun coming in so strong, but with the black and white edit, really helps sell it, I think. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I personally love taking a closer look at the files from the GFX. I have not historically been a pixel peeper, as I care way more about how a photo makes you feel as opposed to how sharp and detailed it is, but the files from the GFX are so much fun to zoom into because it keeps impressing me with how much detail and color depth and dynamic range that it's able to retain in a pretty wide variety of shooting scenarios. Now, I don't think the GFX cameras are for everyone. In fact, I think they're not the right cameras for most photographers. If you're watching this and you're unsure if you need or want these bigger file sizes, the greater fidelity in editing, and of course, the extra size and weight and financial cost that these GFX cameras carry, then it's probably not for you, and that's okay. This is a very niche camera, and even though it's a good fit for me and how I shoot right now, that does not at all mean that it will be for you, because the vast majority of photographers are doing perfectly fine with their Canon, Sony, Nikon, whatever else cameras, and they're making good money with them. I also own cameras from Nikon and Sony, and those have their place in my workflow for when the GFX just ain't it. Hell, it's not, this is even like the best camera for me, all things considered. I can shoot much quicker and easier with my other cameras, but the shooting experience and final image quality from the GFX trump all of the other considerations in this camera for me. So the GFX probably isn't for you, and if I'm being honest with myself, it's really not for me either. But I love it, and I plan to keep using it for a long time. But what do you think? Do you like the photos I showed you in this video? Do you also want that level of image quality and flexibility in editing, and to also be able to take more advantage of real medium format lenses? Then I don't know, maybe a GFX is for you then. Only you can decide that. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more of what I do, please check out my website and Instagram, both linked in the description. You're free to DM me on Instagram if you'd like. You can ask me whatever you want. I'm an open book. I love connecting with people over there. And you can also support what I'm doing on this YouTube channel by simply liking the video and subscribing, both things that tell that dumbass algorithm that this is a video that more people should see. And you can support me even further by checking out my Fujifilm preset pack, again with the link in the description. And that's where you can also find my Fujifilm Chrome preset entirely for free to you. That's me saying thank you for watching this whole video. See, I told you I'd give you a free preset if you stuck around. Anyway, if you don't want to do any of that, that's totally fine, because I will see you in the algorithm in 6 months.